Hey team, this is George. Appreciate all the effort you're putting into week 2 here with our discussions and everything else. So I'm going to share my screen out so we can kind of look at what we're doing with week 2. Start at the signature assignment for the research. This one's going to be pretty interesting. So I'm going to kind of go over the signature assignment and our discussion and our reflection for this week. So the details, if you ever want to know anything about the annotated bibliography, you're going to get 5 scholarly resources. You have some excellent examples right here in Purdue OWL, and you want to follow, you don't want to follow the MLA because we are psychology, so we follow the American Psychological Association annotation, and this is exactly how we do it. And remember, this link came from the Clark in our classroom. So the first one, take a look at this. It kind of explains it really nice. The annotation above both summarizes and assesses the citation. First paragraph provides a brief summary. So in this first paragraph here, you just want a summary of what it's about, what the literature is about that you chose. And then the second one, does it have to be huge? No, take a look at this. It's nice, short, and succinct, 3 to 4 sentences. So you want to practice being succinct and being able to present information quickly and powerfully. And we do that by being very succinct with it. And then the next one, the second paragraph points out the project's strengths and evaluates its methods. So what's the strength of this one? An experienced journalist, limitations with the ethical implications, the author is forthcoming. So how do we figure out what the strengths are? Well, A, read the abstract and then go directly to the methods. After you read the methods, because that tells you how the discovery was made or how the research was done. Was it a statistical method? Did they use statistics to prove something, compare something? Remember, scientific, scientific experiments, they have a base and then they compare something that they've adjusted and compare the two to see if there was anything different. So we want to know, so if they use something scientific, statistically, it's very strong mixed methods where they use both quantitative and qualitative analysis. So in other words, they use numbers and perspective or perception to compare things with. Those are very strong as well. Case studies, some say those are have the least amount of strength because we don't know if that information is truly transferable to other populations, because the population that we choose is very small when it comes to case studies. So that's why it's important to always get a diverse population if you're doing something experimental, because you want to be able to transfer the results into larger groups who want to be able to use that information. So that's all there is to an annotated bibliography, believe it or not. You write the citation right here, or the reference, and then, excuse me, if you ever have any issues or any thoughts on that you don't know how to write the citation or reference, just go to your APA guide right there in Purdue OWL. They do a very, very good job at that. And so with that being said, that's not due until week 4. So that was just kind of food for thought. We'll dive deeper into that as we go through it. And oops, I want to say there was I forget if I put the example here. I'll post an example with the annotated bibliography as well that people have done in the past. So that is not a problem. I'll post that. Now in week 2, we have some fantastic discussion here about the 4 key issues. What are the 4 key issues? You're going to look in chapter 5 of your Developmental Disabilities Handbook. And specifically, we're going to be looking at the Surgeon General's call to action to improve health and wellness of persons with disabilities. Now, this is all the way back in 2005. The Surgeon General made this call. How Do you see this being affected? Do you see a difference from back in 2005 to now? And when I say a difference, do you see a difference in um, social constructs or how we see as a society people with disabilities? Is there a difference? That's just kind of something to think from, but you want to address the 4 key issues that the Surgeon General calls out in the handbook. And remember to cite things. If you put in an idea, thought, concept, yes, there has been a lot of change in, well, how do you know that? Write down either your personal experience of seeing it or support it with documentation. Because has there been changes? Yeah, well, you're gonna let everybody else know what kind of changes they've been. Has a call to action been heated? Well, let us know as we go through this discussion. So that's the fun part of the discussion, because we're going to notice that depending on your perspective or where you're looking from, there are going to be differences. And that is because none of us see everything. We all see bits and parts and pieces of the whole picture. So it's actually a good thing that we do that, because we wouldn't have zero focus whatsoever if we saw the whole picture. We wouldn't be able to implement the change that's meaningful for our piece of that picture. So that's a good thing. And then the reflection this week, I really like the reflection, because what it means when we reflect is we have to internalize things and question ourselves. And sometimes we find out that the question is answered, and yeah, hey, we were, I like our perspective. I like my perspective, and it's going to strengthen it. And sometimes when we question ourselves, we say, I've been kind of looking at this oddly, because we get some new information, and our new information is from our looking at David from negotiating the social borderlands. That is very powerful. And we're going to look and we're going to see, what's our first impression of David? And we all make first impressions. I've been doing psychology for a long time, and I make first impressions. But we know to kind of pause that and then get to know people and build relationships, because that's important. And a lot of times we can build those first impressions by things that we hear or see from others within someone else's life. So we come preloaded with a perception of another person, and we have to remember to have that as information, but let that person make that impression upon us and help them to make a good one, because we all can. Imagine if Christ came preloaded with a perspective of us. Well, I guess in a way he does, but imagine if he allowed that to get in the way of the grace that we're showing on a daily basis. So just kind of keep that in mind as we're going through these 4 questions, and think, reflect, and just ponder on these different questions and how they affect you in your daily life as well, because that's how we really internalize what we're doing and make changes within ourselves that reflect and help others change. And that's how we kind of shine God's light on everything, is by that constant reflection and asking questions. Because remember, the more we question, the questions we ask show our intelligence much more than the knowledge we know. Intelligence is not about knowledge. Intelligence, from my perspective, is about seeking to make things better and more understanding within our world. So I hope this was helpful, and have a fantastic week.